Okay, hi everyone. Thanks so much for being here. I'm going to give it a moment. I didn't think about giving people a couple of minutes to kind of come in and join us, but I'm just going to give us a moment here. Thanks for coming. Hope you're having a good day and you had a good weekend. Mine was pretty packed. I was in New York and Ottawa, but I'm really excited to be back in Toronto and sharing this with you guys. Also, I can't believe that it's already dark at 6:30 in Toronto here. It's a little bit crazy. The seasons are definitely changing, which is unfortunate. Oh, looks like we're having some tech stuff. Sorry, guys. 1 second. I think I already saved. Looks like I had 4 people in before, so I feel like people might be able to get in. But let me know. Can you get in? Okay. It's a classic. I've been dealing with technology my whole life, and I still don't know how to use it. Okay, so I've just found out that looks like our link wasn't working for some people, so we've made a fix, and hopefully we can get that started really soon. Okay, signal for my tech help. Are you able to get in okay? Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to get started. And if we find that people aren't able to get into the room or that we're having issues.
It's saying that on Kajabi, playback on other websites has been disabled.
Okay, we are having technical issues. It's telling me that I'm live.
Go back. Did it save as a public video?
Yeah, looks like it's public.
And then on Kajabi, is there on the landing page?
I would say thanks for bearing with us, guys, but I'm not sure anyone's able to make it in right now. Okay, but if you hit watch on YouTube. Okay.
I can send out a note.
Yeah, I see a couple people on here. It looks like we're hitting the watch on YouTube. We're rolling with the bunches, so. All right. Sorry about that, guys. I'm glad that you were able to get in, and hopefully the tech difficulties won't keep too many people from joining us. But I'm going to go ahead and get started because we're already at 6:35 here. So, okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here and navigating our tech difficulties. First thing I want to say is that if you are here, then I already know you're amazing. And I'm not just saying that because I'm very happy to have you here, although I am, and I really appreciate you coming. But more importantly, it's the fact that you signed up and also the fact that you showed up today means that you're kind of the person who takes action to achieve their goals and to make their lives better and to make themselves better. So that's already really fucking cool, in my opinion. So in this case, you're probably here because you've noticed, like, wait a second, my whole life I've been surrounded. Hi. My whole life I've been surrounded by cool people. I made friends in school. I know I'm very social, likable, whatever. But when I look around now, I don't have the number of friends that I'd like to have, or I just can't shake a bit of a sense of loneliness. I know that that's how I felt when I was really struggling with sort of loneliness and with my social fitness after I moved to a new city and experienced a few friendship breakups. So I totally get that. Okay, and the goal of this webinar, I want to go over it together a little bit so that you know exactly what you're going to be getting. So the goal is for you to learn exactly what you need to do to make new friends as an adult, because the way that we make and keep friends as adults is really different from how it was when we were younger. And I want to quickly reiterate that I'm not going to be talking about body language, conversational prompts, how to make small talk, none of those social skills things, right? Because if you're here, you already know how to do those social skills things. And it's more a fact of like, as you get older, it seems like it feels harder to make new friends. And that is what we are going to touch on today. Also, if you're someone who is here and you're looking for help with the social skill side of things, there are a bunch of awesome resources out there on this, but you're not going to get anything useful from this webinar because it's not my area of expertise and it's not what I teach. So my goal is that by the end of this webinar, you'll understand exactly what you need to do and the tools and resources that you need in order to build genuine friendships as an adult. Oh, more tech things. There we go. You guys haven't been seeing my slides. There's the slides. Much, much easier now. Okay. So going into a bit of detail on the agenda here, what you can expect today is that we're going to start with some facts on loneliness that I think are really important to know, so that we're all kind of going into this presentation on the same page, and so that you can maybe gain a better understanding of whether you're lonely, and if so, what specific type of loneliness it is that you're experiencing, because there are actually different types. Then I'm going to tell you a little bit about me so you know who I am and why you're listening to me. And I'm also going to share my story of how I went from being quite lonely in my early and mid-20s to where I am now, where I've built sort of really incredible friendships and community. I'm also going to go over the 3 main actions that you need to take in order to make new friends as an adult. And these 3 actions are going to correspond to sort of the most common how-to questions that people ask me about, and the things that they really want to know how to do when it comes to adult friendship. Okay, after that, I'm going to make you an offer for a tool that will help you put all of this into practice. I'm going to keep it short. And after that, I've also got 2 gifts that I'm going to be sharing with you guys. And finally, we are going to close out this session by answering the questions that you guys sent in. So please feel free to ask your questions in the chat as well. In fairness to the people who sent their questions sort of ahead of time, I am going to prioritize those ones. But if we end up having enough time at the end, I will try to get to as many of your questions as possible. Okay, so let's get started. My slides, there we go. So first, I just want to acknowledge a couple of things here about loneliness, because I know for me, when I was struggling with not having the number of friends that I wanted, it really felt like this personal failure. I was ashamed to admit it, and I honestly felt like there was something wrong with me. So even though I knew, like, hey, when I go out to a party, when I'm interacting with people, I know what to do, I'm friendly, I'm likable, I still kind of felt deep down like, okay, maybe that is true, but obviously something has to be wrong, because it just feels like it's getting harder and harder for me to make new friends. So I really felt like something had to be wrong. So in case any of that feels familiar to you, I want us to be super clear on one thing. If you don't have the friendship and connection that you want in your life right now, that is not your fault. There's not like some hidden flaw that's getting in your way, but the chips right now are actually kind of stacked against you. And the chances are that before today, nobody has told you, hey, making friends as an adult is completely different from how it used to be when we were younger. Another thing that I think is really important to recognize is that 1 in 4 people globally report feeling very or fairly lonely. So that's 25% of the world. And another 27% report feeling a little lonely. So taken together, what that actually means is half of the world is dealing to some extent with the pain of loneliness. So if you've ever felt like, wow, I don't really understand how I'm at this point in my life where I'm feeling lonely like this, or if you've ever worried that you're the only person who feels this way, or that it's not normal, or anything like that, I want to put those worries to rest. Because if you feel some level of loneliness, then you're actually in good company with literally half of the world. So I share that as meant to be sort of a positive thing, but I know it can feel kind of negative too. And it may be sort of jarring to hear like, okay, 50% of the world is lonely. Like, what's going on and why does that number seem so high? And I would say that we're living in a time and a culture that simply does not prioritize human connection. So the reason I'm so passionate about this and why I've created the term social fitness is because I want us to fight back against this culture of individualism. Capitalist and individualistic culture, it loves to push this idea of succeeding alone and relying on nobody else but yourself, right? But there's a pretty obvious reason for that. Companies can make more money from you if you live alone, you buy groceries alone, if you pay for an Uber to the airport instead of having a friend bring you, if you pay for a sort of food subscription or like meal delivery service instead of splitting cooking responsibilities with roommates or family members, like that list could go on and on. So if you've ever felt like it is weirdly hard to make friends as an adult, trying to build up a community, any of those things, then you are actually right. One of the main things that's making it so hard is just the fact that you live in a capitalist, individualistic society that benefits a lot more from people being lonely than it would if we were all super connected, right? So it's not really trying or prioritizing putting those structures in place for you to connect and find community. But what is so awesome, in my opinion, is that you're here today, which means that you've noticed all of this. And instead of trying to sort of ignore it and hope it'll fix itself, which, by the way, is exactly what I did in my early 20s, and I don't recommend it at all, you've decided to show up today and do something about it. And that is huge because it means you are ready to build your dream social life. You're ready to build sort of close, authentic friendships, and you're ready to really show up and put the effort in that it takes to do that. So I think that's amazing. Okay, and I mentioned earlier that loneliness actually comes in a few different forms. So let's chat a little bit about what those are. Often when we say, I feel lonely, we think of loneliness as kind of this one single thing, right? And it's a little bit limiting because it feels like you can either be lonely, which a lot of people kind of subconsciously interpret as having no one in your life, no connections, or very, very few connections, or you can be not lonely. Like it's very black or white. And I think that's part of the reason that loneliness feels so stigmatized and a lot of people feel ashamed or embarrassed to admit when they're lonely. Like I know I felt this way for sure when I was struggling with this, because saying that you're lonely feels a lot like saying, hey, I have no one in my life. I don't have anyone who cares about me. But for most lonely people, that is just not true at all. Like it could not be farther from the truth. And part of the reason that that's not true is because there are actually 3 different types of loneliness that we can feel. So that exaggerated sort of almost a caricature of a lonely person that has absolutely no one, that makes us feel ashamed of the word loneliness. It's someone who's experiencing all 3 types of loneliness at once. And I would bet you literally any amount of money that that is not you. You're here because you're already social and friendly and likable. You've got a lot of success in your life, but you still feel a little bit lonely. And that's probably a little bit confusing and weird. I know I felt super confused and ashamed and just like, what's going on here? Because you know that you're not spending every single day sitting around at home alone. You know that you have good connections in your life, and none of that fits in your mind with this like image of a lonely person. So you're probably wondering, why can I be good with people? And why is it that I have good relationships in my life, but I still feel lonely? So here is why. The 3 types of loneliness correspond actually to 3 types of social relationships that we need as humans. So that first type of loneliness is intimate loneliness. And that's where you lack sort of those very deep, close, vulnerable relationships with people that you can really confide in, that you can really be vulnerable with. Those relationships could come in the form of close family members or best friends or romantic partners. But it's basically going to be anyone who knows you deeply and who you feel like you can share anything with. So lacking those relationships, that is intimate loneliness. The second type of loneliness is relational loneliness, which I think is very, very common these days. So if you're experiencing relational loneliness, you might feel that what you're missing is a larger social circle. So in some cases, maybe you do have one or more of those intimate relationships, but you're lacking like a larger friend group. And relational loneliness is kind of that feeling of not having enough friends or a big enough social circle to like satisfy your social needs and what you need in order to charge up your social battery. And then finally, the third type of loneliness is collective loneliness, which is about sort of feeling a lack of belonging to a community or a social group beyond yourself. So you might be looking for a sense of community or even a feeling of belonging to something that's greater than yourself. So you can think of churches or volunteer organizations as really obvious examples, but even something like a sports team can really help you sort of fulfill that collective, that sense of wanting to be part of a collective. So, knowing that there are these 3 different types of loneliness, I think it's so important because once you can identify what type of loneliness you are feeling, you can understand exactly what types of relationships feel like they're missing from your life right now. And then you can work on building those relationships up. Okay, so that's everything I wanted to share just to get started about loneliness so that we're all sort of starting on the same page here. So let's get into it. Who am I? Why are you listening to me? What are we talking about here today? Well, my name is Maggie, and for the past 5 years, I've been obsessed with learning everything that there is to know about how to live a happy life. And for the past 3 years, my main focus has been on sort of the most important aspect of a happy life, which is building and maintaining strong personal relationships. In particular, I'm really focused on helping likable but lonely adults make new friends and improve their social fitness. So I've said this a few times. I just want to pause to explain that social fitness is the term that I use to describe our social lives. Because just like your physical health or your mental health, our social health is so key to our overall well-being, and it's something we need to consciously take care of. So doing that reframe of like social fitness, I think is a way to keep reminding ourselves that this is something we actually have to actively take care of. Okay, and a little more about me, background. My first social fitness business was a company called Happier. I founded this company in 2022 to help adults in Toronto make new friends. I hosted more than 60 friend-making events. I built a community of more than 10,000 people. We went viral on TikTok. We were featured on Global News and the Toronto Star. I'll come back to those in a second. And I helped thousands of adults make new friends. And the most important thing for me was that I personally built my social life up from this place where I felt lonely a lot of the time. I was really in that experience of a relational loneliness to where I am now, where I genuinely have the best friendships and the best social fitness of my life. So this is me on Global News morning. I had to wake up at like 5 a.m. to do this interview. It was very, very cool. They say making friends as an adult was hard enough before the pandemic. And then they were just talking about my mission and how I was bringing people together to make friends in person. And I was also covered in the Toronto Star. At the time, it was just sort of, oh, wow, there's these friend-making events. They were something that was quite new even just 3 years ago. So we got a lot of coverage and we got a lot of people kind of signing on for that. So that's where I am now and what I've achieved. But to really explain why I know so much and also care so much about this topic, I want to also tell you my story and how I got here. So I'm going to take you back to fall 2019. I was sitting at home and I was sobbing on the couch while my now fiance tried to comfort me. So him and I, we had just moved to Toronto so that I could go to law school. I didn't know anybody in the city. And at the time, I was actually also going through a couple of friendship breakups with a friend group that just wasn't clicking anymore. And so me moving to Toronto was kind of the final nail in the coffin of those relationships. So basically, I was in a situation where I really needed to work on making some new friends. And I felt not too worried about it at the time that I was moving because I thought to myself, well, I'm starting school. I figured that as long as I sort of made the effort, I'd be able to form new friendships fairly quickly and naturally. Now, flash forward to maybe October or November, and there I am sobbing on the couch. At this point in my life, I remember honestly feeling like I really wish that I could just give up on trying to make friends. Like the trying just felt so hard. But I also think it was because in this week at this moment, I was feeling really rejected because there was a girl at school that I was trying to become friends with. And she'd sort of rejected me a couple of times that week. Once when I came up to chat with her by her locker after class, and she kind of like rushed off and brushed me off. And another time at the school bar night, which they hosted on Thursdays, I went up to her and another girl, and they kind of did that thing where the girl grabbed her and was like, oh, we're going to go over to the bathroom. And so I was trying to assume positive intent all the time with people, but every time I kind of went up to her that evening, the same thing happened, and they were kind of leaving and ditching me, for lack of a better word, and a funny word to use for, I don't know, I must have been 24 at the time. So that was a really hard week for me because I was just in such a vulnerable place and I just felt very alone. So regardless of the fact, you know, I had a boyfriend and I had some people in my life, I felt very, very alone at that time. And I also felt really ashamed of the fact that I didn't have many friends outside of law school. I was really scared of coming off as like desperate or lonely or clingy because I thought if people found out I didn't have that many friends, then it would just get worse and they wouldn't want to be friends with me, right? And on top of that, I really just hated putting myself out there and having to deal with the fact that some people just didn't like me. So that moment where I was crying on the couch is the one that I always kind of come back to. And I think of that as the loneliness that I have ever felt. And it was such an awful, painful feeling. So if the loneliness you're experiencing is like that, or even if it's perhaps not nearly as acute as what I was experiencing in that moment where I broke down on the couch, I just want you to know that I feel you. Yeah, I understand exactly what that feels like. And I'm so sorry that you're feeling it because I know how painful it is and I know how much that hurts. But at the same time, I also have a lot of admiration for you because you've done something that I probably wouldn't have been able to do at the time, especially in my loneliest times. And you've showed up here today to kind of do something about it. And I think that's amazing. And I can also tell you, like being on the other side now, like I promise that you can completely transform your social life. You can build all those friendships that you want to and that you're longing for. And I know that because I did it. So yay! Obviously, I did not end up giving up on on making new friends because of that one tough week. I did keep putting the effort in, and I ended up making a handful of good friends during law school, which felt amazing. But then we all graduated, and those friends that I had made became lawyers. And if you're a lawyer or you know anybody who works in law, you'll know I'm kind of laughing about this because I was the only one of my friends who chose not to go work in law after school, which meant we were suddenly experiencing very different realities. I had way more free time than any of my friends who were basically putting in 90-plus-hour weeks as junior lawyers. And so suddenly I was back in this place again of needing to make new friends. So I realized that despite my efforts during school, I still didn't have the full social life that I really wanted. I still longed for more friends, and I kind of had these daydreams of like going away to cottages with a friend group or hosting dinner parties, like just these really simple things. I wanted constant texts to sort of respond to, and I wanted to be invited to things. And I wanted to throw parties, honestly, without worrying that my invite list was too small. And truthfully, at the core of it all, I was a big people pleaser and I really wanted people to like me. Okay. And I will talk a little bit about how that mindset sort of changed for me as well. But at the time, I know that was really a big motivating factor for me. And so I realized that putting myself out there and making the effort whenever I just happened to be in circumstances to meet people was not going to cut it, especially since I just paid for a law degree. Like I'm not going back to school anytime soon. So I'm going to need to figure something else out here. And I realized that unless I did something really different, I was going to live my whole life not having the friendships and the social life that I longed for. And so without the automatic social structure of school to rely on, I realized that a lot of adults struggle to make new friends because we are expecting friendship to happen organically the way that it used to when we were young. But in adult life, friendship just isn't organic. It takes work. So I started researching friendship. And I realized that if I was going to genuinely commit to making new friends as an adult, I needed three things. I needed a way to meet new people. I needed to find community with people who were similar to me and who were experiencing sort of the same struggles of loneliness that I was. And finally, I realized that I needed a way to keep myself accountable so I wouldn't give into that temptation to kind of stay at home, stay hidden, avoid rejection, and kind of settle for a social life that just wasn't what I wanted it to be. And I knew I had a tendency to kind of hide away in this way and try and avoid being rejected because I did that a lot during my undergrad. I decided, oh, I already have some friends here. I went to university in the same town that I grew up in. And so I allowed myself to kind of use that as a crutch to not put myself out there and not try and make new friends. And I really learned a lot of painful lessons from that, right? So I realized I am someone who's going to need accountability if I want to show up for myself in this way. So this was only 3 years ago, but at the time, the friendship industry, as it sort of is starting to exist now, wasn't really in place. So the sorts of like events and programs and apps that have really exploded to help adults make friends were not available to the same extent that they are now. And so in the end, I just actually decided to make my own. And that is how my previous business was born, Happier. And it ended up giving me all three of the things that I needed in order to start making new friends as an adult. So first, it gave me the opportunity to meet a lot of new people because the video of my first ever event went viral on TikTok. I was actually hosting sold out 50-person events multiple times a month in order to keep up with the demand. And I also want to pause here for a second and just say, like, what other proof do we need that there are tons of really cool adults out there who want more friendship in their lives than the fact that this was like selling out. So meeting this many people was not always easy. As I think I've mentioned, I was like a chronic people pleaser. And especially as the host of these events, I felt enormous pressure to make sure absolutely everyone enjoyed themselves, that they formed connections and had fun, and that they were judging me and my events positively. But actually, the biggest gift and transformation that I got from meeting so many people was that I genuinely could not please all of them. It just becomes impossible at a certain point, right? So I had to really let go of that. And that helped me also develop these completely newfound sort of levels of confidence, because as I was meeting more and more people, I realized that genuinely, if someone doesn't like me, there is like an unlimited number of other people and other opportunities out there for me to find someone that I do click with. And so that like pain of someone not liking me, it really, really lessened. And I really found that I was able to be more confident and be more genuinely myself. The other thing that was incredible about Happier is that although I was hosting these events, I was doing it because I was lonely and I wanted to make new friends in the city, right? So the people who actually came out to those events, they became a community for me because we were all experiencing those same struggles. We could really relate to each other. And I honestly feel like it was very healing for all of us who became part of that community to really normalize loneliness and to be able to recognize, like, I'm not alone in feeling this way. And so honestly, all of those changes, they came about for me because I chose a way of making new friends that kept me accountable to actually doing all of the things that create new friendships as an adult. Hosting events meant that I had to keep showing up week after week. I had to meet all of these people. I could not back out if I was feeling tired or nervous or whatever. They were my events. I was hosting them, so I had to show up. Secondly, Happier kept me accountable for showing up with an open mind and being a friend in order to make friends. I'm going to talk about this in more detail in sort of our 3 actions later. But one of the biggest lessons that I learned through this time in my life was that back when I felt very lonely and when I didn't have enough friends in my life, I was actually really reluctant to approach people, to initiate conversations. I was even reluctant to come off as like being too friendly or overly friendly because I was really scared of coming across as needy or being too much. Like I thought that that would alienate people and maybe push them away. But when I started approaching people with like very high levels of friendliness and enthusiasm because they were guests and they were coming into my event that I was hosting, and so I wanted to greet them and help them feel comfortable. When I started approaching them with those high levels of enthusiasm, they would mirror that enthusiasm back to me, and you could just see them kind of light up with it. And what I realized is that it made not only breaking the ice, but also just like connecting with people in general so much easier. And again, I'm going to chat about that a little bit more later on. But to wrap up my story a little bit, I had this mechanism for making new friends that kept me accountable to meeting a bunch of new people. It kept me accountable to being friendly and open instead of putting my guard up as kind of like a defense mechanism. And it gave me that like-minded community to connect with and lean on because we were all sort of working towards the same goal and experiencing the same things. Yay, here we go. And having that accountability and that community is what helped me finally not just make a handful of new friends, but it genuinely transformed me into this person that I didn't even realize I really wanted to be. So I became a lot more confident and comfortable in my own skin. I find it's much easier to connect with other people. And I kind of bring that openness and friendliness to my interactions very automatically. And I not only have the best friendships of my life right now, but I also feel very confident that the next time I go through a life transition, and I find myself needing to make new friends because unfortunately that is just sort of a fact of adult life actually, is that we go through these transitions, we move to new cities, we have people move away, and we need to kind of rebuild our social circle. So the next time that I go through that sort of transition, I do feel very confident that I'm going to be able to build up those friendships and that community much more quickly and easily because of the skills and the knowledge that I have developed. Which, speaking of, it's probably time we get into the details on those skills and knowledge that you're looking for in order to make new friends. I'm just going to take a quick sip of my water here. And then let's get into it. Okay, first thing, want to get it out there. You don't need to host events, don't worry. You probably don't want to start hosting multiple 50-person events every single month, but the good news is that you do not need to do that. You can repeat the same steps that I took to go from feeling lonely a lot of the time to being surrounded by close, genuine friendships without needing to start a whole business. So don't worry. I'm just going to say one more time, again, we're used to making friends organically. That's how it used to happen. It doesn't really happen organically when you're an adult. Unless you're sort of at a very large, very social in-person company, you just don't have those same opportunities to automatically put the hours in with new people in order to go from being acquaintances to friends. According to the research, it takes 40 to 60 hours to form a basic casual friendship, 80 to 100 hours to transition to falling sort of solidly in that friend category, and over 200 hours to become a close or intimate friend. And it's hard to put those kinds of hours in. I know when we were in school or when you're in a situation where you are automatically seeing the same people over and over again, those hours rack up very quickly. But now, obviously, you're a busy adult, you have like a high-level job, you're working 9 to 5 or even more hours than that sometimes. And so thinking about how are you going to make the time for those friendships, it can be very overwhelming. But the thing that flips it on its head and it really makes it possible for you to prioritize your friendships and your social fitness, even when you're super busy, is having community and accountability, again, to help you enjoy that process of meeting new people and forming those bonds. So in this webinar, I promise to walk you through the main things you need to do in order to make new friends as an adult. So we're going to go over those now, but I'm also going to kind of turn each of these actions into a how-to, and I'm going to go into detail on the main outcomes that you're probably looking forward to. Because the 3 main actions that you need to take in order to make new friends, they're probably not going to blow your mind, but it's the details on these actions, what they can do for you, and sort of what how-to they translate into that are really going to help you transform your social fitness. So one of the main things I told you about during my story was that I met a lot of new people. Okay, and I have here as well / how to find your best friends. So this is honestly a key action you need to take, not only to help you build genuine friendships, but also, and maybe even more importantly, to help you go through a mental transformation when it comes to really showing up very confidently and as yourself. And honestly, I'm going to sound really corny here, so I'm sorry. But it's also very transformational when it comes to your magnetism. I don't know how else to say this. If you've got a better word, please let me know. But yeah, basically developing that magnetism where people are drawn to you, they seek you out, they like you, and they want to spend time with you. That's something you're going to figure out and develop over the course of meeting a lot of new people. And I don't mean you're going to develop it in sort of like an inauthentic way. It's going to develop for you in a very, very genuine way, because you are going to be displaying a lot more of the confidence and you're going to be displaying yourself more. And that really does attract people to you. So a lot of the time when people talk to me about wanting to make new friends, they do focus on the exact kind of person that they want to meet. So they'll tell me that they want people who click right away. They want people who are super similar to them in X, Y, and Z ways. And they do really describe like, this is the person that I'm looking to become friends with. And there's nothing wrong with having dreams about friendships you want to build, right? Like that is completely fine. But the problem is that when you have a super specific vision of who you want to be friends with, it does tend to kind of get in your way. And you'll start thinking to yourself, well, okay, where am I going to go in order to meet those perfect best friends who are exactly like me? And then you basically enter this state of paralysis, right? Because there's no actual way to know where and when you're going to find your best, closest, most intimate friends. And so when you're in kind of this state of mind, it's likely that you'll see an upcoming friend-making event in your city, or you'll see like a meetup group that gets together to go hiking, but your beliefs are going to hold you back from going to those events because you'll think to yourself, well, no, the people who are really like me probably wouldn't go to that event, and I'm probably not going to meet people at this thing that I really connect with. And so you end up just staying at home. So the shift that I want to ask you to try and make is like, instead of asking yourself where you can go to meet the exact specific people that you envision being friends with, I want you to let go of that a little bit and just become very open to meeting a ton of new people and seeing everything that that does for you. Because of course, you're not going to like or vibe with every single person that you meet, and that is okay. What we're doing here is we're actually approaching sort of making new friends by first building up our quantity. And by bringing quantity into your life, by meeting lots of new people, you are creating the opportunities for you to find and develop that quality that you're looking for. And it's impossible for you not to find those close friendships that just click. The final thing I'm going to say on this piece is that although we tend to think of friendship as sort of this one single term, as we know and as we've chatted about a little bit, the research shows that we have different layers of friendship, and all of those different layers are very important to our social fitness. So a simple way of thinking about those layers that corresponds directly to the 3 different types of loneliness we talked about earlier is that you have your intimate relationships. So again, usually that's your immediate family, romantic relationships, closest friends. Then outside of that, you have your social relationships, which encompass sort of your more casual friendships, including activity friends, people that you might play soccer with. And finally, you have sort of that outer layer of acquaintances, community, maybe even interactions with strangers that contribute to your overall social fitness. And those are not people that you have particularly close personal relationships with, but they are a layer of relationship that's actually quite important for us. And so instead of thinking about building out those friendship layers from the inside out, so starting out by focusing on trying to build really close, intimate relationships first, what I want to encourage you to do is to build up your social circle from the outside in. So if you go out and you meet a ton of new people, it's actually going to help you build up those casual acquaintances and those activity friends and that community. And as you meet a lot of people and you broaden your social circle, you're going to start to slowly narrow in on who you feel the closest to. And those relationships are going to deepen and develop into those close friendships that you're really looking for. So I would say, as my final thoughts on this action, if you want to find the people that you truly click with, if you want to find those best friends, just give yourself the goal of meeting a ton of new people. Not only will starting with quantity help you build your network and sort of more naturally find those quality friendships that you're looking for, but it's also going to really help you develop your own confidence, your sense of who you are and who your most authentic self is. And that's going to really help you attract similar like-minded people to you, because when you are being 100% yourself, other people can kind of identify that and they will sort of start to sort themselves towards you. Okay. The next action you need to take is to learn to be a friend in order to make friends. In other words, you need to be proactive. You need to be the person who initiates things. So try being the person who says hi, who asks other people about themselves, and be really friendly and welcoming. When I was lonely, I realized that I was trying to protect myself, but in doing so, I often gave off the vibe and the message that I was not that interested in the people that I was meeting. And surprise, surprise, when I started approaching people with much more openness and much more friendliness and sort of having this barrier up, that was when I really noticed a difference in how people responded to me. And that was when I really felt like I developed that like magnetism. And again, someone at some point is going to have to give me a better word. Okay. And it's not like I was rude or unfriendly before. I want to be very clear about this. So the thing I want you to hopefully internalize here, like the real difference, is that when you start approaching people in a super friendly way, like you're excited to chat with them, you want to get to know them, you're really interested in what they have to say, that is truly a magic key that is going to unlock so many more connections. Because what you've done is you've made other people feel safe and liked, which is going to make them way more likely to take a chance on trying to connect with you or invite you to grab dinner or whatever. And that is especially true if you're really focused on being that person who does initiate, you're inviting them out for coffee or to grab dinner with you. Okay, and I want to address this second part because a lot of the time people ask, well, like, how do I turn someone that I've met from an acquaintance into a friend without it feeling kind of like forced or inorganic? Like, I don't want to get in the way and I don't want to take up their time. And so obviously that is a completely fair. Got someone asking if we're still live. Yep, I am here. This is me. I hope you can see me. I've had some difficulties with people joining, so I hope you're able to see it. Let my tech person tell me if not. Yeah, so we worry about things maybe feeling inorganic or not feeling natural, which is completely fair. But honestly, the easiest way to make sure that you're not forcing anything, awesome, okay, we're all good. The easiest way to make sure that you're not forcing anything is to just let people opt in or opt out from being friends with you. So you can be friendly and you can be the person who invites other people into your life without seeming or feeling pushy. So, yeah, be the person who invites others. But obviously, a caveat, if you invite somebody to hang out like 2 or maybe 3 times, they always have something else going on. And they also don't try to suggest like alternate plans or invite you to things. Then the way to keep it from feeling forced is to just like let it go at that point. And you might be surprised to find that some of these people will actually circle back to you and start asking you to hang out, but some of them won't. And that's totally fine because you'll be implementing action one and you'll be meeting a lot of new people. And you'll understand more and more every single day that you truly have unlimited options for people to be friends with. So for every person that says, no, we're choosing not to show up, there will be like 5, 10, 20 more people that you'll meet. And I think the other thing that's really important to kind of address here is it feels like if we come off like too strong, that's going to be very off-putting to people. We really have this tendency to want to not be an imposition or not be sort of taking up people's time. And I just want to remind you of this stat of like 1 out of every 2 people in the world feels some level of loneliness. So more often than not, what you're actually going to find is that you are not imposing on people. They are not annoyed or frustrated to receive an invite to coffee. And most of the time, they're going to be really, really excited to get that invite. And you're going to be sparking a new relationship that cannot happen if one of you doesn't sort of decide to take the risk of, imposing and take the risk of taking up their time. And I actually have a story to kind of solidify this. So one of my closest friends now is actually a woman who showed up to my very first friend making event. And at the time, I remember her telling me that she had sort of finally made this decision with herself that she needed to really focus on making new friends and invest her time and energy into doing that. And what I think is really cool is that the very same day that she made that commitment to herself, my event popped up for her on Eventbrite. So she signed up. And after the event, she reached out to 3 or 4 people who had been there, including me, and she invited us to go to an exhibit with her. And she told me, I think like a year or 2 later, that she was actually so nervous to make that invite because she was really scared of being rejected. But actually, every single one of us that she reached out to said yes. But way more importantly, because she took that initiative, because she decided to like be a friend in order to make friends, even though she was scared, even though she was nervous, she actually created a close, really beautiful friend group. And there are 4 of us still going strong 3 years later, all because she took that initiative. And it never once felt forced or unnatural because people like being invited to things. Like speaking for myself, I was so happy to be invited. I showed up. And 3 years later, I have some of my very closest friends, all because of that, all because she took that initiative. So closing out sort of this second action, in order to turn acquaintances into friends without, sorry, just checking my chat here. In order to turn acquaintances, into friends without it feeling forced or inorganic, all you have to do is you take that initiative, you invite people that you feel like you click with to hang out, and honestly, you just let people opt in or opt out. If they're not interested, like the worst thing they're going to say is no, or like maybe I'm busy a couple of times. So if they're not reciprocating those invites or those efforts, you can just move on and you really won't have lost anything. It's really not that big of an imposition to say like, hey, do you want to grab some coffee with me? And it can really completely change your life. Like it can lead to your closest friend, as it did for me, which I think is really, really cool. Okay. And number 3, I'm noticing we're getting a little short on time, so I will try to speed up a little bit here. But the final action we're going to cover today of the sort of 3 things that you really need to do to make new friends as an adult is finding like-minded community and building in accountability mechanisms so that when you leave here today, you're not just going to have the information that you need in order to succeed, you're also going to have the tools and systems in place to help you do it. So as I mentioned earlier in this call, having a mechanism that helped me be accountable to showing up and being friendly and taking that initiative, that was the thing that allowed me to finally completely transform my social fitness and to really build up the friendships that I have now. And the other thing that made a huge difference for me, obviously, was having a community of like-minded people who were all working towards the same goal and experiencing kind of the same loneliness that I was. It was really nice to stop feeling alone in my loneliness, to really normalize it and recognize, like, hey, yeah, it really is more difficult to make new friends as an adult, but that's not because of anything that's wrong with you. And so it's always nice to have people to share ideas with and learn from when you're all sort of striving towards the same thing together. So yes, this final action I'm going to recommend that you do in following this 3-step plan to sort of build genuine friendships as an adult is to find some way of joining a community of like-minded people who are also trying to make new friends. And most importantly, to find accountability mechanisms that are going to work for you and help you keep that commitment you've made to yourself to make those friends. Okay, sounds doable, right? Because if you followed that sort of first action to find the people that you really click with and to ultimately find your closest, most intimate friends, and if you followed the second action to turn acquaintances into your friends without it feeling sort of forced or unnatural, and if you took action 3 to kind of find that community and accountability that will help you take the first 2 actions, do you think you could make new friends? Do you think that you could really transform your social fitness and become someone who's surrounded by friends and community and someone who's always getting invites to things and has a full social calendar? Because I think you definitely can. Because I've told you my story. I've told you how I was super lonely and all the years I spent battling this and working my way towards sort of a bit of a solution. But I'm not anyone special. I don't have any particular gifts or natural attributes that allow me to make friends. We've definitely already established that you've got the people skills, you're charismatic, and you've just been missing the how and the tools to make it happen. So now that we've gone over the 3 actions that you need to take to make friends as an adult, and you've got a good grasp on that how, the final barrier that's the only thing really standing in your way is taking the action now. So the reason I'm hosting these webinars, the reason that I want to share all of this information for free to everyone, as many people as I possibly can, tech issues notwithstanding, is because I really want everyone to have access to the knowledge that they need in order to start building genuine friendships as an adult. I want to tackle the loneliness epidemic because I have been where you are now, and being on the other side, all I want is to help as many people as possible get to where I am and to build the best friendships of their lives. So that's why I'm sharing all of this for free, and I'm going to keep sharing as much information as I can so that you know exactly what you need to do to make new friends if you are a likable but sort of lonely adult. Now, I know that some of you on this webinar are DIYers. And so just from this one webinar, you're going to go and you're going to take everything you've learned today, and you are going to make those new friends. If that's you, maybe you've already pulled up Eventbrite or Meetup and you found some sort of friend-making or community event in your area and maybe even purchased a ticket. And I think that is awesome. I'm so excited for you, and I can't wait to hear how your friend-making journey goes. I would love to hear updates from people of how this information is helping you and what difference it's making. Now, that being said, speaking as someone who is decidedly not a DIYer, I do not have a lot of success in doing it myself. As someone who really needed those accountability mechanisms and that community in order to really change my social life. And honestly, as someone who pays the membership fees to attend fitness classes instead of just going to the free gym in my building, I know that sometimes it's way easier and faster to get the results that you want by upgrading and investing in a tool that can help you succeed. So, for those of you on this webinar that are upgraders, I'd like to just take a couple of minutes here to offer you a tool that will allow you to immediately achieve that third action of finding community and accountability, and help make it that much easier and that much more fun as you go through the journey of taking actions 1 and 2, meeting a ton of people, learning to be a friend in order to make friends, and becoming very sort of proactive. So if you're a DIYer, thanks for being patient. I'm going to take a couple of minutes here, and then we are going to get into the gifts that I'm giving everyone on this call. And after that, I am also going to answer the questions you guys have submitted, and we have some really interesting ones. So I'm really looking forward to that. Okay, so the tool I want to offer you now, while you're motivated, while you're feeling really ready to start taking care of your social fitness and start building the friendships and the inner circle and the social network you've been missing, is a 6-week social fitness challenge. Now, this challenge, it's going to be a little different from the challenges that you might be used to or ones you've done in the past, because one of the really cool ways that we're incorporating accountability into this challenge is by structuring it in a way that as long as you complete the challenge, you will win back the money you paid to participate in it. Okay, so if you do the actions of this challenge, you will win back the money that you paid to do the challenge, which I personally think is a super cool motivation strategy. Like, I wish I'd come up with it myself. But yeah, the basic premise here is that by doing this challenge and putting some skin in the game, you're going to be able to see firsthand for yourself the power of having community and accountability on your side. Because you can listen to my story about how this worked for me, you can see how it worked for other people, but it's not really going to feel real to you until you see for yourself, like, how does community and accountability change things for you? How does it work wonders for you? So let's chat very quickly about the challenge and what you will get when you sign up. So when you sign up for this 6-week challenge, the first thing you're going to get is actually the first gift that I'm offering to you for being here live on this webinar, which is a personalized plan to make new friends. So in a nutshell, I'm going to ask you to share some information about where you are in the world, what sorts of friendships you're looking for, what your likes and interests are, and so on. And then you and I are going to hop on a call together, and we're going to go through your options and put together a completely personalized plan for you on what you need to do in order to make the new friends that you're looking for in your city, with all the sort of knowledge and nuances about what you're experiencing and where you're at right now. And that plan is actually going to inform the tasks that you need to complete each week during this challenge in order to win your money back. So you get to be a very active participant in what that looks like. So that's the first gift for those of you who are here and who sign up today. You're also going to get a chance during that call to ask me any more questions you might have about the challenge so that you have everything that you need in order to succeed with it. Okay, the next thing you're going to get is 4 additional one-on-one calls with me. And again, during each of these calls, we're going to be focused very specifically on you. So what your needs are, answering any questions or roadblocks that you come up against, and basically just consistently checking in during that 6-week time period to make sure that you feel supported and you have all the resources that you need to absolutely crush this challenge. On top of that, you're going to be placed in a small accountability group with other people who sign up for this challenge. And in fact, you guys are going to be the founding members of this group. You're going to have weekly accountability calls with your group as another way of sort of making sure that you stick to your tasks and your goals through the challenge. You are going to become founding members of my online community, the Social Fitness Club, and you're going to have immediate automatic access to that for free. And again, you're going to have that founding member status, which I've put as priceless because you are the only people who are going to be able to say that and to claim that. You're going to get clear weekly tasks that are assigned to you in that community and that are obvious and actionable, like very easy for you to follow through on them. You're also going to get a social habit formation guide to help you develop the habits that you need to keep your social fitness going strong, not only during the challenge, but as you move on past those 6 weeks. You are going to have access to me via email and on that online community, so you can reach out to me anytime that you have questions in between our scheduled calls, either the group calls or the one-on-ones. And finally, and what's honestly, in my opinion, the most valuable about this 6-week challenge that only you are going to get, since you're, again, going to be the first founding members for this program, is that we're going to be building the program based on your needs and what you are asking for. Okay, so it's going to be completely customized to you, which is honestly so valuable because you're going to be getting that very custom, personalized experience as though you purchased sort of like a one-on-one program, but you're getting it for the price of a small group program instead, which I think is really cool. So if we add all this together, you get more than $7,000 worth of value. But obviously, I'm not going to charge you $7,000 for this. But I honestly want to ask you, and you don't have to answer me in the chat, don't say anything out loud. I just want you to consider this for yourself for a second. If you were to put a price on achieving your dream social life, what would that price be? Because I've been approached by several people in the past month telling me that making new friends is worth thousands of dollars to them. And it kind of made me realize that putting a bit of a price tag on what your social fitness is worth to you could be a really great tool for understanding where it sits right now in terms of your priorities and how important it is to you. So knowing that number for yourself, again, just think of it in your head. I think it's going to be really important in order to kind of overcome a lot of the beliefs you might have about how important relationships are and what level of priority you place on them. So again, if you've been treating relationships as like a lower priority up until now, I really want to emphasize again that that's not your fault. It really is a byproduct of the culture and the society that we're living in. But the good news is that that sort of like knee-jerk reaction to think of friendship as fluffy or like this fun extra or something that's not that important in your life, that is something that we can fight back against. And that's what I'm trying to do here with all of this information on social fitness and how important it is. Okay, so thank you for doing that exercise. I know it might have felt a little weird, but I do think it is important to kind of have that for yourself. So again, obviously, I am not charging $7,000 for this 6-week social fitness challenge. Moving forward, I'm going to offer this challenge for a minimum of $16.99, all of which, again, you win back when you complete the challenge. But since, like I mentioned, this is going to be a founders cohort, it's the first time I'm running this program, I'm offering it this one time for just $9.97. And again, that's sort of the minimum price that I wanted to put on this, because the whole point of you putting that money on the line is to give you accountability, right? It's not really about me. My goal is for you to win that money back. It's something where we can't make it too low of a number that you won't feel motivated to kind of put the effort in and to win that money back. So that's going to be the price for the next 24 hours for those of you who want to be part of this as a founding member. And I want to address a very obvious question really quickly here. Why would I sell you something where if you successfully complete it, I don't make any money? Like, that sounds like I'm putting myself in a position where I'd actually be rooting against you, right? Like, I'd need someone to fail so that I can afford groceries this month. And so I want to address that, because the answer is actually no, I definitely don't want you to fail. I want you to succeed at this challenge. I have a vested interest in you succeeding at this challenge, because I want you to see for yourself exactly how powerful community and accountability is. And I want you to stick around and join me in my online community of the Social Fitness Club. And I want you to even become like an advocate for other people out there who are lonely, who need to prioritize friendship and relationships more in their lives, and who can watch you do it and realize that it's possible. So basically, I want you to see the value of paying consistent attention to your social fitness. And yeah, if we play this out, if you were to join this 6-week challenge and fail, and you walk away not trusting me, not making any new friends, not making any breakthroughs, and basically telling other people about the bad experience that you had with me, that really wouldn't be a win for me, right? Like, it would be terrible. So I promise this is a real offer. I genuinely want you to join, and I genuinely want you to win back your money at the end of the challenge. I want you to see the incredible results that it gets for you and see the value in sticking around and being a part of my online community. So does that make sense? Okay. And just to kind of set your mind at ease, I also have 2 guarantees for this challenge. So number 1 is that after you sign up for the challenge at this link, you're going to have your first call with me. And during that phone call, you can ask me absolutely any questions you want to. You can get all of the information that you need. And if after that call you feel like, you know, now that I've heard more, I don't actually want to participate in the challenge, that is completely fine. I will give you a full refund right there, no problem, because I don't want to take your money if you're not actually interested in doing the challenge, right? Okay, and number 2, I also have a value guarantee. So if you buy the challenge, you have that call with me, you decide like I'm in, participate in the challenge, and then at the end of those 6 weeks, you're like, I really didn't get the full like $997 of value from this, I will also give you your money back. No questions asked. And I hope that doesn't sound too good to be true. I promise it's not. It's just that I have a genuine passion for this. I really want to help people succeed. The way that I did that previously was I offered sort of low ticket offers to thousands and thousands of people. And that was amazing in a lot of ways. But the thing that I want to do now is I want to be able to really give you all of the tools, all of my time and attention, like everything that I can to help you succeed. And so I'm doing that by having higher ticket offers and being able to show you what that community and accountability and that information and knowledge really does for you, and put you in a situation where you are interested in investing in your social fitness and you do come back and you pay attention to that month after month, because I think that's really the thing that is going to help us truly tackle loneliness. And that's what I really care about here. So I really don't want to keep someone's money if I haven't helped you. Like, that's not something I'm ever going to be interested in. Okay, we're done now with that. We're going to get into some of the questions that you guys sent in the next couple of minutes here. But yeah, I just wanted to put that offer forward because I know that even though not everyone is an upgrader, some of you are DIYers. And again, I think that's awesome. That's why I'm giving this information for free. I want you to have it. I want as many people to have as many tools as they can. I wanted to make sure that I also had this thing to offer to the other people who are like me and who prefer to upgrade and pay a little bit more in order to really achieve the results that they're looking for. Okay, so we are very much coming to the end of our time here. But before we sign off, I want to give you the other gift I prepared for the people who are here viewing the webinar live. And then I'm going to get into answering some of the questions that you sent me ahead of this call. And we're probably going to go a bit over time for those, but I'm going to stick around and answer at least those ones. So if you have the time to stick around, I hope that you will, because they are really, really interesting. Okay, so the second gift I want to offer you guys is actually going to be a lottery draw. So for anyone who DMs me on LinkedIn, and my name's Maggie Arai, I think you can see the badge somewhere here. If you find me on there, just send me a DM. I'm going to enter you into a draw to win a free one-on-one call with me where you can ask your friendship and your social fitness questions, and we can have a more like in-depth conversation and get into more of the specifics. I'm not able to get too specific or too in-depth with the questions that I'm answering today on this webinar because obviously it's not one-on-one. We have a lot of people here. But during a one-on-one call, we'll have more time to get into your questions and discuss them in depth. So if you're interested in that, just shoot me a DM on LinkedIn before midnight tonight, and you'll be included in the draw. And I will announce the winner tomorrow, and I will contact you to set up our call. Okay, so let's answer some questions. I'm going to have some of my water again before we get into this. Okay. Yes, I remember this question. This is a really interesting one. So this person is asking, how do you make friends from different walks of life? And why does it feel like interest fades away on both sides when we enter different life stages? So I think there's a really interesting answer to this, at least when it comes to research that's been done on friendship between women. And it was a woman who asked me this, so I'm going to refer to that. And I'm going to call on a friendship expert whose work I really admire named Danielle Bayard Jackson. Danielle talks about how research on female friendship all seems to kind of converge on three main things that women want in their friendships. And those three things are symmetry, support, and secrecy. So symmetry is the one that's going to really apply to this question. So symmetry refers to this desire that women often display in their friendships to be equal and to feel like we're the same. So it's a desire to feel like I'm like you and you're like me. And there's this egalitarianism in our relationship. There's a bit of a desire to see our friends as being an extension of ourselves. So when it comes to interest fading away when you enter different life stages, or maybe finding it a bit more difficult to make friends from different walks of life, I think that desire for symmetry and for us to be the same can really get in the way. Because suddenly we're actually experiencing very different things. Maybe we're making different life choices, we have different priorities, and that can really chafe at that subconscious desire for us to be the same. And I think it's safe to say that when seeking new friendships, women also search for these traits of like symmetry, support, and secrecy. And so that can help explain this tendency for people to make friends with other people who maybe work in the same industry that they do or who are really similar to them in some way. Now, that being said, I think there's a lot of ways that we can display characteristics of symmetry with people, because obviously you're never going to be 100% the same as the people that you're friends with, which is a good thing. But I think if you're looking to make friends with someone, I think this example, she was saying she wants to find people who are outside of tech or B2B. I would try searching for commonalities with people that don't relate to your work. So if you're used to kind of meeting people on LinkedIn or in professional settings, maybe actively seeking out different sorts of social activities that are related to other interests that you have. So like enrolling in a pottery course, joining a hiking club, and just sort of branching out into the other interests that you have, whatever those are, because then you'll be able to sort of have that sameness, that symmetry, and those things in common with people that are so key for forming friendships. But you're going to be sort of fulfilling that require for that sameness by diving into a really different facet of yourself or your personality or your interests. So you're able to kind of relate to people on a different vector that's not related to your work and not related to maybe both of us are being in tech. Okay, so that's what I'm going to say for question one. That's a really, really great one. I think it's super interesting. Okay, question number two. Yeah, I get asked some version of this question quite a bit. So, how do you motivate friends that have expressed previous interest in keeping in touch, but they never take action slash prioritize? So this is a really great question. This idea of having people in your life who want to be friends with you, who express that they want to keep in touch or that they want to hang out, but they don't really take that initiative. It can be really hard, and unfortunately, it's relatively common. The short, not very glamorous answer is that you can't motivate people to be good at prioritizing you or taking the action that they need to take in order to see you. But the thing that's important to remember is that just because someone isn't taking that action or prioritize you doesn't mean that they're lying when they say they want to keep in touch or that they want to see you. So again, flipping back to our stats on loneliness, right? Half the world is struggling with it. Chances are pretty good that the person who isn't showing up for you does want to show up. And there's two problems getting in the way. Either they haven't built the skills to be able to do it and show up for you in the way that you want, or maybe they do have the skills, but they're at a stage in their life right now where they simply cannot do it. They don't have the capacity to be proactive. They don't have a lot of time to spare, and their social fitness is probably suffering because of it. And we know that's a very common thing in the world and culture that we're living in right now, right? So I'm not saying that you should give those friends a pass and continue like shouldering 100% of the initiative and being the one who makes sure that plans happen. But instead, what I'd encourage you to do is let those friends know that you value your friendship. You'd really like to see them more, but you're finding it difficult to always be the one who makes the plans. And you should go at this conversation in a way that's be genuinely curious. Ask them about their life and what's going on in their life, and be genuinely curious about their answer, and don't come in with like judgment or blame, right? Because you might find out that they're dealing with a lot right now, or they might say, listen, I'm too overwhelmed to make plans. I really appreciate that you do that for us, and I promise to show up when you do make those plans because this friendship is very important to me. So you may be able to find a way of kind of coming to an agreement on what you guys have capacity for that feels okay for both of you. And if you have that conversation and your friend is sort of making promises to you that, oh, I'm going to show up for you in this or that way, just take a step back and give them the space to do that. Just pause for a moment on being the proactive one in the friendship and leave space for them to make the next move and reach out. There's a lot more I'd love to say on this because I think it's very nuanced, but I know we're already over time. So maybe the final thing I'll just say here is that if you have this conversation and you feel like your friend still isn't taking action or prioritizing you, then it's okay and probably healthy to just recognize that most friendships have seasons, right? They can ebb and flow, and you might just be in a period of ebb with that friend right now. So as long as you feel like the friendship still serves you and you still want them in your life in some capacity, you can just sort of acknowledge with yourself that this friendship might be in a state of ebb right now. It might be in a state where you're not going to see each other that much. And you can take that time and that energy and invest it more at the moment in your other friendships. And recognize it well that at some point in the future, your friendship with this person may return to more of a flow where you both have more time and more capacity to show up and see each other in person and experience those high levels of closeness, right? So it doesn't always have to be that when a friendship ebbs, that's the end of it and we just let it die. It can kind of go up and down in terms of the amount that you're seeing people. And that doesn't have to mean that you are just going to cut things off entirely, because I know that that happens quite often and it doesn't always have to. Okay. All right, question 3. I've got 5 up on my slides here, and then I'm going to try and bring us to a close because I know we're over here, but I want to cover all of these because I think they're such great questions. Yeah, and this one, why does it feel like there are so many unwritten rules about the hierarchy of relationships? How will I have people to grow old with if they're all intent on prioritizing their marriages above all else? So this is a really great question, and it's a little bit related to our next question as well, which is about navigating friendship when your best friend is married. But this person here basically described the fact that she is married. She has a lot of friends that are married, and she was sort of lamenting the fact that many people, once they are partnered or married, can put so much effort and emphasis into that relationship that it ends up detracting from their friendships. So she's talking about this hierarchy that we all kind of see and experience, right? Where romantic relationships are placed at the top and our friendships take less priority. So the question is like, how do you navigate these hierarchies? How do you find friends to grow old with? especially acknowledging that we may not always be lucky enough to have our romantic partners by our side until the day we die, which is so sad of a thought that I'm just going to move on from it very quickly. Yeah, honestly, this is such a valid question. And I think it really speaks once again to the culture that we live in. There's such a strong narrative of romantic relationships being the most important relationship that you will ever have. And while there's no problem with sort of seeing romantic partners as being very key, important people in your lives, I think the problem and the frustration that comes in is that our cultural narratives placed romantic relationships at the very top of the priority list, whereas friendship is like put way down below in terms of priority. So what I'd say in response to this question is that although a lot of people do see romance as that very top priority, I do also think that our culture is slowly changing. People are starting to recognize the importance of their friendships. I say this as someone who founded a friend making company 3 years ago when friend making events didn't really exist, at least in my city. And seeing the number of events and activity that are on offer now is actually incredible. Like, it's completely blown up. There's people paying so much more attention to this. So because that culture is shifting and people are starting to recognize that friendships are important and that one person cannot fulfill every single one of their social needs, I do think there are people out there who will see relationship hierarchies the way that you do, and or there are going to be people who will be open to seeing them this way. So I think that in building your friendships, the best thing you can do is to make it clear how you think about these relationships. Make it clear, like, yeah, I have a husband, he is my best friend, but having close, intimate friendships with other people and having other friendships that we can grow old with is also a huge priority for me, and that's what I'm looking for. So you don't have to, put people through like a friendship interview or be super intense about it. But what you can do is lead by example and make your priorities and your values known. And I think what you'll find is that when you approach friendships from this place of like, listen, I want to make space for this friendship, and I actually consider you to be just as important to me as my romantic relationship, you will see that sentiment reciprocated from some people. You're going to be showing them basically that there are other options for relationships that aren't so hierarchical. And you'll also be showing them that they're a priority in your life, which I think goes a long way. So to close out this question, I think it kind of comes back to the same sentiment as being a friend in order to make friends, right? So in this case, if you display like the level of care and the level of closeness that you're searching for in your friendships, I think when you do that, you'll be able to find the people who really reciprocate that care and who see friendships and relationships the way you do, and who are also looking for people to grow old with, and who don't want to, place their romantic relationships tip top at the detriment of their friendships. Okay, and like I said, our next question is a little bit related. So this person was asking what happens when your friend's husband doesn't like you, and generally how to manage adult friendships when your best friend is married. Okay, so this is a really hard question. And first, I want to just say that I'm sorry to this person that you're in this situation, because navigating something like this is never easy. The second thing I'm going to say is, so I'm going to touch on that second piece first of like managing adult friendship when your best friend is married. And then I'm going to come back to what to do when your friend's husband doesn't like you. So I think this is a situation where you're again going to find that those three things women search for in their friendships of symmetry, support, and secrecy really play a role. I actually think they're all going to play a bit of a role when you're managing friendships when your best friend is married. So I do encourage you to take a look at some of those other ones. Support kind of gets into, are you there for me and are you cheering me on? And secrecy kind of gets into, are you sharing things with me and am I a top person in your life that you share with? Which is a dynamic that can get a little bit complicated, obviously, when your best friend is married, because as we talked about, those romantic relationships are often places where we do share a lot and we do put them sort of at the top. I'd love to get into those in more detail, but again, I'm conscious of the time. So I'm just going to go back to the symmetry piece in particular. So that desire for us to feel like I am like you and you are like me. This can be strained when two friends take different paths or end up being in different life stages. And some of that is related to what we chatted about in the past question about hierarchies. So I won't get into that. But in order to kind of keep that feeling of symmetry, like we are the same, I'm like you, you're like me, I think it could be really helpful when your best friend is married and you are not, to find other activities that you both love and that you can do together at regular intervals, like kind of building a ritual for yourselves, right? And part of the reason why is that being in the same life stage, it helps us not only feel like we're similar, but it also gives us like a shared language and vocabulary and shared stories to lean on when we see each other, right? And so since you and your best friend don't currently share the language of marriage or romantic partnership, where you can sort of trade information about like great date night spots that you went to, or navigating the challenge of dealing with sort of difficult in-laws, finding something different where you can have that shared language could be a really helpful way of navigating this period where you're sort of having very different day-to-day experiences, right? And it can be a way for you to come together very intentionally and build up that shared language and that shared narrative, and something that gives you that sense of like, I'm like you, you're like me. We have this same language and these same sort of activity and stories that we can share with each other. So that's something that I would advise for sort of managing adult friendships when one of you is married and one of you isn't. And also in general, not just with marriage, but if you are in different life stages and you really want to retain that closeness, I think bringing in some of those rituals and those things to do together is a really good way of addressing that. Okay. Yeah. And then addressing the question about a friend's husband not liking you. I will say that I think that this, there's probably a lot of nuance to this. So I don't want to overstep in my advice here, since I don't know very much about the situation. I may, have it wrong. But what I would encourage in general for these sorts of situations is to be as open in your communication as you can be. So if this isn't something you've discussed with your best friend, then it may be worth trying to have a conversation. I just make sure that you would go into that conversation remembering, of course, this is your friend's husband. It's someone really important to her who she loves. And so the purpose of the conversation is going to be really focused on like expressing how important she is in your life. And that you'd really like to have a better relationship with her husband because you know how important he is to her. And you want to have a good relationship with him too, so that she doesn't ever end up feeling stuck in the middle. And so I think coming at that conversation from a place of trying to be collaborative and work with your friend and being very clear with your intentions, right? Because it can be difficult and it can be messy and emotional when someone feels like two people that she loves, are having a difficult time or might not like each other. So being clear with your intentions that you're bringing up the topic because you love her and you want to make things better, I think that really goes a long way. So yeah, I think that's the most I'm going to say, since I don't know the nuances of this particular situation. But yes, I'm sorry again, because that is a hard situation. And I'm wishing you all the best with it. And I think that, yeah, just open communication and being clear and open with your love for your best friend is going to be the best thing that will serve you in this case. Okay. And this is the final question that I'm going to address before we sort of close out for the evening. I really love this one. So this person asked, how can I actually be intentional in socializing and making time to catch up with friends, especially those I barely see, without completely depleting my social battery? Okay. So this is a great question, and it's sort of an issue that I know I really struggled with when I went from having very, very few friends to having like an enormous number of people and friendships in my life. I really had to learn how to be intentional and protect my social battery because there were several times when I felt close to social burnout. And I'm still not perfect with this. I still think that it can be very, very difficult to navigate this and to have the correct balance for your social battery. So the first thing I'll say right off the bat is that if and when you can see people in groups, or you can sort of create groups, so introducing your friends to one another, trying to create friend groups, I would definitely suggest doing that. I know some people really struggle with the idea of sort of like mixing friends, and it's true that your friends aren't always going to end up being friends with one another, but I do really believe in bringing different friends and different friend groups together when you can, and making that opportunity for your friends to get to know each other. Because if you know that your social battery only allows you to have social plans like 3 or maybe 4 nights a week, you're going to need to be kind of intentional, because if all of those are one-on-ones, then you're only seeing 3 or 4 friends a week. And I'm not saying that that's not a good number, but if you are in a position where you're really trying to cut back on that and make sure that your social battery isn't getting depleted, then it is going to be difficult to navigate that. And yeah, it's important to remember that one-on-one hangouts are still going to be very important to some of your friends. And they're also a very important component of like forming those deeper, very intimate relationships. So I'm not saying to cut out on one-on-one hangouts, but if you're able to create situations, especially with more casual friends, where you're kind of bringing them together, you're seeing a group of friends together, you're going to find that it's a lot more kind to your social battery, and you're going to be able to see more of the people that you want to see without feeling like you're just drained all the time. Your social battery is drained. The other aspect of this that I think is really important to be able to differentiate is knowing which are the people that you like and that you have a casual friendship with, and who are your best friends or your inner circle. So make sure you know which friendships light you up and which ones make you feel like your full self, and which friends you really care the most about keeping in your life. Because unfortunately, our time and our energy, it is a finite resource. And so making sure that you prioritize the people who are the most important to you and who you have the deepest and closest relationships with, it's going to be key. It's going to be key not only to making sure that you don't deplete your social battery in general, but it's also going to be really important for making sure that you keep part of your battery free and charged up as much as you possibly can for the people who really fill you up and make you feel the happiest and the most loved, because you want to make sure that you're reserving some of that time and energy, or a lot of that time and energy, frankly, for your best friends. Yeah. I think that is the best advice that I have for this question. It's a tricky balance, but sort of implementing some of those things can really make it a lot easier. Okay. I think that's all the questions that we have time for today. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I really hope that you gained some valuable information. For those of you who are interested in the 6-week social fitness challenge, the link to purchase it should have gone into the chat. I know we had some tech difficulties. So if you didn't get it there, you're also going to be receiving an email right after this with a link to it as well. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting started with our founders cohort. I can't wait to connect with you. And I'm also really excited to just be sharing this information with you guys, putting it out there for free. I hope that you learned something valuable here today. And if you don't already follow me, you can find me on TikTok at Maggie Social Fitness and on LinkedIn as Maggie Arai. Okay, thanks so much, guys, and have a great night. Cheers.